Hello, my darling. Welcome to Monday. Excited for tonight. Instagram rolling.
Yep, getting Instagram going. Well, hello, hello. Happy Monday. So how was your weekend? How was your Monday? We have a full moon.
It was good. I had a good weekend, and we do have a full moon. Yes, I posted that in my Instagram, the benefits of the full moon. So
Very
yes, we have
good.
a full moon tonight.
We do. And speaking of tonight, we have a guest.
We do. I'm excited for it. Was a guest that, well, I'll let you introduce, but it was a very important guest or person that we had met at a conference, and so we reached out and brought him on.
Absolutely. We met Charles at Hack Your Health in Austin in May of 2024, and we both stopped by his booth and talked to him. And so, let me tell you about Charles Mayfield. So he is the founder of Farrow, and his interest in clean food began when he was a personal trainer. Yeah, that was news to me. So he began researching nutrition to help his clients reach their fitness goals. And eventually he co authored three paleo cookbooks, which I'm going to have to get my hands on. And Charles then started Mayfield Pastures with the goal of growing food in a way that could heal the body and the planet. And of course, he wanted to teach his children the value of hard work, about land healing, and give them a deeper connection to healthy food and the land where it's grown. And that's right off of his website that I'm reading this, because it's laid out perfectly. So Farrell was born from Charles' direct experience with the land healing at Mayfield Pastures, and his commitment to optimal sourcing and supporting regenerative farming are at the heart of every product Farrell creates. So let's just bring him on. This is Charles Mayfield, everyone. So let me add him and welcome.
Great to be here, ladies. It's hard to think about. I saw y'all last year, but yeah, time flies. But it was great to meet you both in Austin, and certainly enjoyed the Hack Your Health experience. And it looks like it's moving to Tampa in this year, and hope to see a repeat visit by I will be there, so would be delighted to see you all in the flesh again.
Yep, we are both going to be there for sure. Of course, you'll probably be able to drive it. So
Oh no, nope,
nope, you're flying, huh?
nope, nope. It's outside my drive window. It's Tampa's about 8.5, 9 hours from me,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
just I'll just get a ticket.
There you go. Well,
Although White
yes.
Oak Pastures is on the way, so if I
Yes.
do have enough time on my hands, I may drive it and stop off there en route.
Well,
But
we're going to be driving from Texas, so we're going to be coming across the panhandle of Florida, which isn't too far from White Oak pasture. So
no,
we
not at
might
all.
have to take a detour ourselves as well. So definitely. But anyway, let's talk about how the heck you got started.
Yeah, it's kind of a wild story, jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. But Farrow is probably a correlation of three careers. You mentioned them in the intro, but I had a background in health and fitness. Well, I was a financial planner for years, and I'm still in the insurance game, albeit more on the commercial side. But in the mid to late 2000s, ran across CrossFit, and sort of fell in love with the community aspect of it and working out, and got really interested in fitness, and sort of the next step is start to get interested in your food. You're putting all this work in, you want to make sure you're fueling yourself properly, and took at the time, this would have been 2009, took the CrossFit nutrition certification. It was taught by a gentleman by the name of Rob Wolf. And Rob was a dear friend. He and his wife, Nikki, really sort of pushed my ex-wife and I, Julie, are the ones that published the cookbooks. And Rob was really the first one to mention paleo, and my motivation for the nutrition certification, funny enough, I got injured working out, and sort of went from a very active lifestyle to 6 to 8 months of hardly any activity. I was like, man, I put all this work in, I don't want to ruin it. And Rob just sort of introduced us to paleo. Julie and I got really into it. We both were avid cooks. She had done a lot of work in the catering world when she lived in LA. And I grew up in my mom's kitchen in my dad's workshop and Boy Scouting and things of that nature. So I'd always enjoyed cooking. And so that was the cooking aspect. And then the paleo movement really got fast and furious in the late 2000, probably 10. Rob really brought it to the forefront. And so started attending a conference in Austin, Texas called Paleo FX, which was ironically held in the same location where I met you two. And it's wild. I think the first conference was 2012. And for the first, Julie and I had one of the early cookbooks in the paleo movement. And so we were sort of pseudo paleo celebrities, if you will. So I never missed one of these conferences, but in the first couple years, it was all this arguing over protein, carbs, and fat, and macros and micros. And it was really fascinating. In about 2014, the entire conversation shifted away from arguing over that to really focusing on, food security and food quality, and how the way we grow food impacts, the soil and our ecology, and started to run across, we mentioned, White Oak Pastures, started to see some really cool brands come into the space, Epic Provisions, and then met the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. And I want to say in the fall of 14, our second cookbook was coming out, and we were asked to go to Polyface Farms in Virginia. This is Joel Salatin's and the Salatin family's farm. I call that place Mecca, by the way. There's another place to visit for your listeners if they have an opportunity. And took a trip up to Polyface. It was a fundraiser for the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. Really neat weekend, but I got to see firsthand, what I would call true multi-generational regenerative farming. And it absolutely just sunk its teeth into me like you can't imagine. Joel's a prolific writer, so I started just gobbling up as much of his content as I could. And in 2016, moved to where I grew up in East Tennessee. I'm there now to start a small micro, regenerative farm. And it was really the farming that, so in terms of Farrow, you've got sort of health and fitness, love being in the kitchen, nutrition, and then regenerative farming. And fast forward to 2019, I suffered, and we go into this on the website, so I won't belabor the point, but I had a really gnarly sunburn, like stage 4. Everyone with light enough skin can close their eyes and remember those, devastating sunburns we got, on the beach as a kid or whatever the case. I'm old enough to know, the SPF values back when I was a kid were like 12. Now they're like 120. But anyway, I got a gnarly sunburn and came home. When we used to go to the beach as a kid, this is so funny how this happened. My mom would take a jar of aloe vera, and the minute she's from Mobile, Alabama, so we would always go down every summer. We'd spend a week on Mobile Bay, and there was always a jar of aloe vera in the refrigerator. And she kept it there to keep it cool, so when you got sunburned, you had this nice cooling sensation on your skin. And so I come home with this, probably a 2nd-degree sunburn. I mean, it was nasty. And I had this sort of pseudo epiphany, half curiosity, half desperation. I live in a small town, all the medicine cabinet's empty, the stores are closed. And I had been growing pigs and rendering their fat and cooking with it. This again ties into the sort of the culinary background. And I was like, I'm gonna give that a whirl. And so I just coated my body with this stuff. And about 3 days, I put it on it at night, and then again the next morning. So two fairly thick applications. And in about 2 or 3 days, my sunburn was gone. The pain was gone almost immediately. Sunburns hurt, and that was fantastic. To have it resolve that quickly. But more importantly, and you both know this, I'm sure your listeners know. When you go on these health journeys, and we've been coaching paleo challenges and all sorts of stuff, but when you see something, you sort of pause and pay attention, and whether you're reintroducing a food back into your diet or whatever. And when the sunburn went away, I watched my skin meticulously like a hawk for probably 3 weeks, because again, I had this memory, like at some point I'm going to peel. And I kept waiting on the peel, and it never came. Not a stitch, like not, on your shoulders, where your skin moves a lot, or so, I just kept looking and no peeling. And so that was really the light bulb moment. I'm not an esthetician. I'm not a dermatologist. There's a lot of things I'm not, but when something works, I sort of pay attention to it. And so, got in the kitchen, started tinkering around with recipes, and fast forward a couple years later, decided to launch Farrow. We're the first lard-based skincare company. Tallow's very hot right now. Yeah. And we love tallow. Tallow, we use tallow in our products, but we say the lard works in mysterious ways here at Farrow. And so, yeah, we launched in 2022, and it's just finished our 3rd year. And so we're excited to be here talking to you guys. And that's a little bit of the background as to how it came to be.
I love that. So, of course, I've been stalking you since you agreed to come on the podcast. So I've been soaking up all the different podcasts that you've done. I've been listening to it. And there was one that I heard you talk about where you started making your product was out of your church's kitchen.
Yeah. Well, rendering. We would make it. Yeah. When you my church has I mean, I can't do it anymore. Their insurance premiums went up for whatever reason, and so no commercial business use was allowed. But so I'm out of that kitchen. But man, it was perfect. Stainless steel, everything. I mean, it's an older kitchen, but yeah, when you start grinding fat to render it, you want to render as much as you can, as quickly as you can. And so they were kind enough. Let's see, it's been about 8 months since I had to retire from there. And it's okay. We're making do with rendering, and we're actually rendering, funny enough, in bigger batches now on a camp style burner. Rendering fat's not complicated. It just takes time and patience and a good grind on your fat. But yes, the church, I used to get all the funny looks, and there's a children's program upstairs, and somebody come down, and it doesn't. People think lard's going to smell bad or smell like bacon. A lot of people associate lard with bacon drippings, but I would get every now and then someone would come in the kitchen like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm rendering fat." Huh? Never thought about doing that before. Man, I'd love to be back in that kitchen, though. They don't use it enough. It's donut church every Sunday instead of, cooking. Everything's out of cans and boxes now. But yeah, we rendered for the first 2 years in my church's kitchen.
So yeah, so you mentioned, the smell, and I actually did get your product. So, and that's one thing I noticed was it doesn't smell like bacon, right? It doesn't. It's got a little bit of a, but it's to me, it's a clean smell.
Yeah.
But I didn't find it to be. I didn't think I was going to put on, bacon grease at all on my face. But it says here that it's lard, tallow, leaf lard, and honey on this one, on
Yep.
the skin
That's our
food.
unscented skin food. Yep.
Yeah. Can you tell me what what the heck? So you got lard, you got tallow, you got leaf lard. What is leaf lard, right?
Yep.
And why did you put honey in it? So let's talk about the ingredients that you've sourced.
Yeah, sure. So again, most people are familiar with tallow, so let's unpack that one first. Oh, hit the mic. Sorry. So tallow, all mammals have predominantly two kinds of fat. You have subcutaneous fat, belly fat, back fat, the cap on your pork chop, the fat in your ribeye. That is subcutaneous fat, and humans have subcutaneous fat. Tallow is the rendered visceral fat. So this is the internal organ fat. It's almost like the airbag for your kidneys, and so it's visceral. If you've ever eviscerated a carcass, killed a deer, or or a pig, or any mammal, the entire set of organs is encased in a sac, and so the visceral fat. Tallow is the rendered visceral fat from a ruminant animal, most commonly a cow. Okay. But you can have elk tallow and deer tallow and bison tallow. There's all sorts of tallows. So that's tallow. It's important to talk about it from the sourcing perspective. It's visceral, it's internal organ fat. Okay. Lard, by contrast, and if you hear tallow, again, any ruminant, if you hear the term lard, it is specifically a pig. Now, a pig is a monogastric omnivore, just like us, okay? And the lard comes from the subcutaneous fat from a pig. Now, not to reference bacon again, but the fat intermingled amongst the belly muscle on a pig, that is subcutaneous fat. Again, the cap on your pork chop, the half-inch or quarter-inch fat cap on a pork chop. That's all subcutaneous fat. And then leaf lard, our third fat, is the tallow equivalent, but from a pig. So it's the internal organ fat. If you read your great-great-grandmother's cooking cookbook, or, cooking instructions, she would more than likely have recommended leaf lard for baking. It is because of the visceral nature of the fat, again, internal organ fat. It's not a storage fat, right? It's the airbag for your kidneys. And so as cows or pigs, but especially pigs because they're omnivores, as they metabolize their environment and store excess calories, in the form of fat, just like we do, they're going to store all of that in their subcutaneous fat. So you showed our skin food, Sherry. Our face food product, which I think you've got one of those as well. It's the silver top. Yeah. So our face food has more leaf lard in it as a ratio of the fats, because leaf lard is odorless and colorless. And in terms of culinarily, it's also tasteless. Okay. So it was prized as a baking fat because it wouldn't impart a smell or a flavor to the pie crust or the biscuits or the pancakes or whatever you were cooking. And so we use it more predominantly in our facial product. It's a slightly different fatty acid profile, still super vitamin rich. And the really nice thing about tallow and leaf lard is almost regardless of the environment that the animal grows up in and the diet that the animal eats, all these things are very important. But in the absence of quality there, because of the visceral nature of that fat, it's somewhat protected. Similarly to how the placenta protects the unborn child from a lot of external exposure that the mother comes across. the this visceral fat is encased in the organs and is protected. So it's a very clean fat. In terms of the smell, I like to always say everything in nature has a smell. Even water smells to some degree. So our product, this is why we label it unscented and scented and not odorless. But bacon smells like bacon for two reasons. One is when you cook bacon, you're actually using a technique called dry rendering. Okay, and so dry rendering is in the absence of water. Cooking bacon is the best example of how you would dry render a fat. Now you're cooking the bacon, but there's no water in the pan. It's just any excess fats coming off. At the same time, bacon is also smoked and cured and salted. And so all of those flavors and aromas are imparted on the rendering of bacon grease. Okay. When we render our fat, we use a wet rendering method. So a little bit of water in the bottom of a pan. If for those home renderers that do this, grab a crock pot, dice up your fat, any fat, dice up any raw fat, whether it's, suet for tallow or back fat for lard or whatever. We grind ours, but you can just dice it up. You throw it in there with a little water and you put it on low and leave it overnight, and all that fat renders off. And then you just ladle it out the top. And most of the time the water will evaporate as you render. But even if there's a little residual water in the pan, oil rises above water, and so it stays really low in the cooking vessel, whatever your vessel is. And so you sort of scoop off the fat off the top, and there's your lard.
So what is smart lard?
What is smart lard? Excellent question. Well, when you're the first lard game in town, you trademark something to denote quality. And not all pigs are raised the same. Not all lards are created equal. And so smart lard is my trademark on quality lard. Again, leaf lard's a little different, but my product does not exist unless you raise a healthy, happy pig that has one bad day and is ecologically nourishing to the land and is fed a proper diet. Because if they're not, stress of poor living conditions and a poor diet, all of that stress and less than desirable nutrition manifests in toxicity stored in the fat. Now that's, it's the same with humans. Feed a human poorly and don't get much exercise and get stuffed up in a room and, don't have anywhere to go to the bathroom, or you're overcrowded. If someone, I tell people this story all the time, because the diet of pigs, any animal, the diet is always front and center of the conversation, but you really have to talk about the environment that they grow up in. And the analogy I use is, take the three of us. Okay. So we go get, what's a good celebrity chef? Gordon Ramsay. Is that his name?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So we hire Gordon Ramsay to cook all of our meals, and then the three of us, and then we hire, Peter Attia or Paul Saladino, or, one of these super awesome health nut doctors out there to pick all the foods. So we get the highest quality food prepared by the, arguably the most talented chef in the world, right? The trick is we got to go live in a 6x6 closet with no windows and no bathroom and no fresh air for 6 months. So we get 3 square meals a day from the best cook, sourced from the best places, right? But we get no sunshine, and we're in a crowded area, and we've got to, go to the bathroom in the corner and pick your corner. And, we would come out of that closet sicker than dogs. And we probably wouldn't last 6 months. Let's be honest. Maybe a month we would make it, but we would come out of there just highly stressed, highly sick, pathogenicity and all sorts of stuff. And so with pigs especially, and regrettably in this country, I think about 98% of the pork raised in the U.S. today is raised in a confinement operation, and just abhorrent conditions. It's like a concentration camp for farm animals, right? And my products don't exist if I'm relying on that fat. So to answer your question, Smart Lard is my way of telling the consumer that you're buying a product that is not only of the highest quality fat for you, the consumer, but also those animals were raised in a manner that is ecologically nourishing. The animal had it lived its best life. I'm not here to, if you want to be vegetarian or vegan, good on you. But the world needs animal agriculture, and it needs it done properly. And we've talked about two great examples. White Oak Pastures and Polyface Farms are wonderful living, breathing examples of how farming can be carbon sequestering and highest conviction and integrity when it comes to how the animals are raised and fed, and again, living their best life. And so that is all encompassed in the Smart Lard trademark that I have. And hopefully as we continue to grow as a company, our products are phenomenal. You've tried them.
Yes.
They work exceptionally well for a myriad of skin conditions, acute and chronic. It's really a remarkable, again, the lard works in mysterious ways. And so that's really my way of ultimately protecting the consumer. If we start knocking on a few of the L'Oreals and Olays of the world and start disrupting the market a little much, I want to make sure that there's some protection in place to tell the consumer this is a good product and this one you may not want to buy.
Yeah. So I think the thing is most people think that pigs are dirty, right? They get a bad rap of, being dirty.
Cleanest animal on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you, when you had your Mayfield pastures, I mean, did you have specifically, you had cows, you had pigs,
Yeah,
like what, what
sure.
I mean? Like where chickens, like
Yeah.
what made you pigs,
Well, they're my favorite farm animal. So pigs are a couple of things. Pigs are an omnivore, which means that they're not only prey sometimes, but they're also predator. They can eat anything. And so they've got this gregarious, curious nature about them. Everything's a potential meal. They are highly intelligent. The studies I've read put their intelligence at about a 3-year-old human, which I used to joke about it. I was like, if you want to know what sexually active toddlers would act like, just go raise pigs. It's quite remarkable. But yeah, so when we were farming, I had to hang my farmer hat up about a year and a half ago. There's just day job farming and Farrow, and fortunately I've made a number of relationships in the regenerative farming space, and so I'm able to source my fats from extremely high integrity, again, meet all of my criteria for the Smart Lard designation, all that. But yeah, so when we were farming at the peak, we were raising beef cattle, beef, pork, chicken, and that was both meat birds and also layers. And then we do a batch of turkeys every year in the fall for Thanksgiving. And so the multi-speciation, again, I sort of took a number of pages right out of the Polyface Salatin model. And again, he's such a prolific writer. He's got desk references for days, but at some point there's only so much you can read. You gotta jump in and do it yourself. And so that was really what we did. And yeah, they quickly became my favorite animal. I mean, you get them to where they'll roll over like a dog and scratch their belly, and they're just remarkable animals. And we started off originally with farming. I was bringing in what are called feeder pigs. So someone else was farrowing. You may ask, where does farrow come from? The term farrow as a noun Farrow, Farrow. I know there's a grain that's maybe Faro, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
there's the Egyptian Farrow. So we're sound the same but different. Farrow as a noun refers to a new litter of piglets. A farrow of piglets, and then as a verb, when I started, I went to a pig farrower and I bought weaned piglets at about 8 weeks old, and I would bring them back to the farm, and we get them trained on electric fence and raise them up to market weight, which takes about from birth to market weight for most pigs is about 7 to 8 months. It's
Okay.
sort of breed. And when I say market weight, 300-pound pig, nice thing about a pig is you can, they're suckling pigs. You can eat them when they're smaller. Once they've framed out, they're ready to go. But in a commercial meat production environment, you want to harvest them between 275 and 325 pounds. And so I would raise them up, and then, gosh, that was 2017. We got our first, fall of 16, we got our first batch of piglets. And then the following summer, the summer of 2018, I got a call from a friend, and she's like, "Hey, I've got this good friend of mine that's got to get out of the pig business, runs a similar situation to you, in terms of pastured and regenerative and all that." And she had a breeding boar and a breeding sow, which we affectionately named Brutus and Olive, circa the Pie series. And so I became a pig farrower, which is again a reference to the farmer that is overseeing the creation, if you will, the creation of new pigs, new bacon bits.
That's great. Now, how hard was it when you had to, hang that hat up to find the sourcing that met your standards? Was it hard, or did you
Oh
have to go
man,
visit
that's
places?
the first time someone's asked me that question. I love that question. Um, Fortunately, no, it was not hard for me
Okay.
to find. I've made a lot of
Mhm.
relationships in the regenerative farming world, and for your listener, I source my fat right now from Joyce Farms they're out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. They're a vertically integrated, much bigger meat producer, and they have unbelievable animal husbandry standards.
Mhm.
They sell quite a bit of meat into the restaurant businesses here on the East Coast. And so that's where I'm sourcing the majority of my fat from now. But no, it was not difficult. Now, as we grow, it's such a wonderful question, Sherry. I long for the day
Uh-huh.
when it becomes difficult for me to source my ingredients for two reasons. One is that means that we've grown as a company
Mhm.
significantly. So the amount I need is much bigger than it is today. But more importantly, you know, we need to be using these fats. They need to
Yeah.
stop being such a waste product in the food manufacturing business that is America today. And we're turning that corner. We were talking, I think, before you hit record. Excited about this Maha and the new administration coming in. I I've gotten to meet him several times. Thomas Massey is probably the greatest congressman in our country out of Kentucky,
Oh, yes.
and I know I know he understands everything about this. I believe he's sort of been tapped to somewhere be agriculturally or USDA adjacent in the new administration, and so I think we're making steps in that right direction. RFK, jokes about we need to get tallow back in McDonald's and start getting them to fry their fries, and so all of these things are steps in the right direction. Ironically, fat is a very difficult byproduct to just discard. It doesn't break down very well. It's very antibacterial, which is why you can, back to your cooking bacon, you
Mhm.
can pour those bacon drippings in a coffee cup and they can sit on your kitchen counter for months and still be good, because it's not a very nutritionally dense environment for bacteria. The very classic, and I don't know, it's probably thousands of years old, but the French cooking, not sous vide, confit. If you've ever had
Oh, yeah.
confit duck or confit chicken, so
Yep.
you're cooking it in its own fat. Now that confit cooking predates refrigeration, it predates so many things, and so you cook a duck, which is a very fatty bird. You cook a duck or a chicken you braise it, right, and all the fat renders and rises to the top of this, whatever your Dutch oven or whatever the case may be, and you set it out, and the fat caps over the top.
Yep.
And because you cooked and killed any bacteria or bugs in the meal itself, and the confit the meal will just sit there and wait for you to come eat it, and it'll actually cure and do all sorts of kind of cool things. But fat does not compost very well. Okay, which is why it's really the ultimate waste product. I mean, if you take viscera, guts and all, I mean, granted, we ought to be eating these organs and things of that nature, but you can take that stuff out to your backyard and compost it, and all the bugs and microbes will come along and eat that stuff it'll be gone. Fat doesn't work that way. And so, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic on a number of fronts. I'd like to see more pigs raised in the environment that I think they should be raised in. It's an absolute disservice to a remarkable animal, not only a tool in regenerative ag, but also, highly nutrient dense when fed and raised properly. They're modern day medical heroes. We train all of our surgeons on pigs. We use heart valves from pigs to fix human hearts. I mean, they're just an absolute dynamo hero to human thriving, and yet we dishonor this animal by raising it in these just abhorrent conditions. And so yeah, I'm optimistic that we'll hopefully start to see more people aware of the true value, not only nutritionally but also dermatologically, if I may, as we move forward in this Maha movement. And so I long for the challenge. I long for the day when I'm bumping up against supply side problems when it comes to my raw ingredients.
Yeah, I was curious about that. So let's talk about, if I can switch subjects here, the Total Skincare Oral Elixir.
Sure.
Can you explain to everyone what this is and why? What do I do with it, right?
Yeah, sure. Great. Thank you for asking. So our oral elixir is 3 ingredients. It's cannabidiol, which is CBD. This is one of the 120 plus compounds that grow in the hemp plant, or marijuana plant. It's the same plant, folks. You can go to the store and you can buy a seedless watermelon, or you can buy a watermelon, and they look exactly the same, but one doesn't have seeds in it. And so hemp, which is the plant itself, it's as ubiquitous with American history as apple pie and freedom. I mean, hemp's been around forever. And so one of these compounds, CBD, cannabidiol, has been shown to improve sleep, reduce inflammation, all sorts of various things. And so we've got CBD, the carrier oil, and the product is MCT oil. It's organic medium chain triglyceride oil derived from coconuts. And then we have a little orange essential oil. Don't think orange juice, think more like orange peel, but it gives it a little bit of flavor. And it's a sublingual elixir, so it goes under the tongue. It's what I like to tell people is it's encouraging skin health from the inside out, right? Your skin wants to be healthy. And so what helps our skin be healthy? Well, drinking lots of water, getting plenty of sleep, lowering inflammation, because the skin's on the far end of oh my gosh, I've got internal body problems. You know, if we've got gut inflammation, if we're poorly slept or fed or dehydrated, the skin suffers first and foremost. You know, it'll be dry, it'll be flaky, it won't heal as fast, it won't, you know, the glands won't function properly. We won't be, you know, releasing optimal amounts of sebum to keep our skin moist. And so it's really it works in conjunction with our topical creams to encourage, you know, being better sleep, lower inflammation, which gives the body permission to then let the skin, our billboard, our largest organ, to let it thrive.
So, which of the three that of your products that I'm holding did you start with?
Actually, we launched with all three.
You did. So
Yep.
you came up with the brainchild of like, let's do this one, let's do this one, what do you have in the what what do you got in the marinating in the back that we
Oh
don't know
gosh.
about?
Well,
Can
right behind me, let's see, right behind me, there's our stack. We just launched this. In fact, we debuted it in Austin when I saw you ladies this summer. These are our soaps. We have three. We call it goat soap, the goat, greatest of all time. When you mix smart lard and goat's milk together, you make a remarkable soap. We have I can grab one. Hang on. I'm coming to you live from my fulfillment center in my house. So this is our epidermis. Oh, so this was the fourth product we launched. So the first three that you had, and then we launched this one 2 years ago in Texas, ironically, at KetoCon, formerly KetoCon, now Hack Your Health. And epidermis is our lard heaviest product. I think I mentioned earlier we use lard, leaf lard, and tallow. This is our lard heaviest product, and literally within months of us launching, if you could call this a complaint, I wouldn't call it a complaint, but it was like, I need something portable and packable. You know, these glass jars are great, and they really are designed to be a bathroom countertop, kitchen countertop type product. You know, high end, luxurious. You know, we're trying to sort of hang with the big boys when it comes to the look and the feel. But this is our on the go. I mean, I have one of these in my car or in my, you know, work bag or travel bag, and so it's just a portable, packable. It comes in an aluminum tube. You got to be careful. There's a warning on here because if I held this in my hand for like 3 minutes, it's liquid. If I put it in my pocket, because it's pure fat, we don't put any preservatives in our products, and so we have a warning on here. Let's see. Here we go. Where is it? Warning: squeeze tube with the top pointed up, because a lot of people will open it like this,
Oh,
and if it's been in your pocket, it just pours out. So we're actually in the process of looking at changing the packaging to put more of a pinhole in the
oh,
top rather than a wide mouth. You know, we're a small company, and for your listeners that don't know, when you start trying to put things in tubes or pack things up, you know, you go to someone that can do that has that capability. We handcraft the jars we do here. But you
okay.
know, for this, I bulk make a batch and I ship it off to Texas, and they fill it
Well,
in tubes and then ship it back to me. But you know, you have what are called MOQs, minimum order quantities, and so we're still a young business, and so committing to, you know, a 5 or a 10,000, you know, run of product is
yeah.
it's a little much for us right now, given our where we are in our scale. But in terms of what's down the road, I've got a bunch of ideas. I'm playing with the deodorant right now. We've got the soaps. I mean, you know, Sherry, interesting question, because optimal skincare
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't take more than 4, 5, 6 products. You know, I mean, you know, they've got everybody, you know, psyop into thinking you need a night cream and a morning
Yeah.
cream and an upper eye cream and a lower eye cream. And you know, I mean, this is going to sound a little heretical, I guess, but the skin on your face biologically is the same skin that's on your hands. The difference is you don't grab things with your face. I don't rest my lower eyelid up against a tree. I rest my elbow, which is why my elbow is a little bit more worn out and rough. And so you can treat both of those patches of skin with the same product. I would make the argument that you should be able to. But, again, I don't get to have this conversation with the, 329,999 other consumers in the US that are convinced you need a special product for your face and a special product for this and night and morning and all that. So we're going to work on and build our portfolio slowly. Again, at the stage we're in right now, we're still handcrafting everything. And so as we grow, we're going to have to, we had a great year last year. It was our best year ever. And so, we're bumping up against, sort of production capacities and things of that nature. So I'm optimistic that 2025 is going to be a year where we have to sort of scale. And so looking forward to that.
Well, it's funny because let's see, how long ago was that, Becky, that I started complaining about the dry skin on my face? And I put, I was putting anything and everything on it. And then I literally have been actually the face food,
Mhm.
and it is so soft. I'm sitting here touching it now. It is so soft where it was so dry and scaly before. I was like, that's what I needed. But I was rubbing, what was it, castor oil. I even did olive oil. Like I was, I didn't do the bacon grease, but I did do some tallow. I was trying all kinds of stuff um, to get that to soften it. This actually works, and I'm actually impressed with this.
Well, thank you.
So,
We share, I alluded to this earlier. Well, first of all, skincare is a fat-based industry, and it has been for millennia. The Egyptians were fascinated with, golden glowing skin and, bathing in olive oil and taking milk baths, and Cleopatra's doing this. And we've been fascinated with skin forever, but at the end of the day, it's a fat-based industry. Your skin needs fat. And, candidly, olive oil is kind of cool, but you're not an olive. You're not a shea. You're not a coconut. You're a monogastric omnivore. And I say this not to disparage tallow, because we use tallow in our products, but you're also not a cow. Now, you're a lot closer to a cow than you are a coconut.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Genetically. But at the end of the day, skincare, optimal skincare, and feeding your skin, your largest organ, your second stomach is what it's often referred to as. It's about biology, and it's about the biology. You could break it down into three very distinct components. pH, humans have a pH, and skincare needs to align. Whatever you're putting on your skin should align with your pH. It has to do with lipids and the balance of lipids. This is the ratio of monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, saturated fats. You want an optimal blend there that matches our biology. And then the third thing you want is, and this is another one of those crazy things. They've done the same thing in the food industry. Food industry and the skincare industry look very similar in terms of they're feeding you a bunch of lies and they're undernourishing you, right?
Yeah.
So they've convinced us all that somehow lab-grown, synthesized vitamins and minerals are somehow on par with naturally metabolized, naturally created, and stored vitamins and minerals. And that is flippantly false, right? They're not even the same molecular thing. We'll keep this subject on skincare. Retinol is a big buzzword. Hyaluronic acid, all these buzzwords. Well, retinol, folks, is vitamin A. Okay, that's what it is. And so, would you rather get your vitamin A from the actual vitamin A that was metabolized and stored through an animal's diet and lifestyle, right? Or do you want to get something grown in a lab? Because the synthesized stuff grown in a lab on a molecular level is not the same thing. And our body is unbelievably smart, right? I'll take it back to food. I forget which one, Beyond Meat or Beyond Burger, one of these jackass, pardon my French, one of these plant-based meat companies. They got in a ton of hot water about 2 or 3, 4 years ago. And one of the many reasons why I take pride in seeing their stock price plummet every week, but they got in a ton of problem. They got in a lawsuit or something because they were labeling their, Beyond sausage or whatever. The label said 19 grams of protein, and it was 19 grams of this pea-based protein. But the reality is that our body is only capable, because this stuff is junk, of only metabolizing about 11 grams of it, because it's not an optimal, naturally occurring protein, right? And so they got in all this hot water because, if I'm buying a product thinking I'm going to get 19 grams of protein per serving, but I'm only getting 11, well, that's false advertising, right? And so the consumer has been convinced that these, again, look at all the buzzwords in skincare. Hyaluronic acid is another great one. Hell, you make hyaluronic acid. So if you just get healthy and feed your body all the right components, right, you're going to make the stuff yourself. Now, does hyaluronic acid production decrease as we age? Yes. And so why not get a product? Here's the best testimonial for my product I can tell anybody. No one's been using it longer than me, and I need less of it today than I did when I started. And that's the biggest challenge most of our customers have, is they'll order it and they'll get it on like a subscription, and it'll show up every month. And first off, like, a little of this stuff goes a long way because there's no junk in it. And so it's figuring out how long this, most of our customers end up on either a bi-monthly or quarterly subscription because it takes that long to go through it all. And it's nourishing your skin so much that over time you need less and less and less of it, which I think is the best testament to the quality of our products ever. And regrettably, just like the diet nutrition industry is trying to starve you of nutrients and get you hooked on the process and not actually feeding you, candidly, most skincare products today, any skincare product that you walk into a brick and mortar store and buy, I'm speaking in a general sense here, but walk in your Costco's and your Whole Foods and your CVS's, everything on the shelves there is technically, because of the way it's made and what it's made with, is drying your skin out and aging it faster.
Well, and it's clogging pores and it's promoting skin issues. That's where I was going to chime in, because I've used more of a tallow base, but we also had pig process, so we started incorporating a little bit of the lard in there, or the back fat. So I knew what you were talking about, but it's just the aspect of this deep moisturization. You also get all the fat soluble vitamins. I know you talked about vitamin A, but you get the vitamin E, A, D, E, and K. So you're getting all of those fat soluble vitamins. You're looking at cellular repair. You're looking at it on this deeper level, let alone the fact you're not disrupting hormones with, the chemicals that they're putting in there. You're not, so if people want to, one of the big buzzwords right now, right, is biohack, and they're wanting to look at this cellular level, then you should be using a product topically. And I'm referencing more than just, face products, right? We're talking about body washes. I'm talking about, the full gamut, because they're all disruptors. But if you want to look for that deep moisturized, plump skin, etc., on that cellular level, then you need to use something that's going to mimic the human skin, right? Yep. It's highly absorbable. It's not going to leave that greasy feeling, to be able to use that. But also, animal fats also have the omegas in there too.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that people don't realize is because we're not talking about seafood, right? They associate more of the omegas with seafood, but you can actually get it through the animal fats too, and it creates a better barrier. So things that you don't want, because your skin is very porous, it's going to help to create that better barrier and not absorb a lot of environmental toxins too.
I have seen a pastured pork fatty acid profile. It's hard to get there, right? Because you got to feed them right and all that. But I've seen a fatty acid profile for a pastured fat cap that was on par with wild caught salmon. I mean,
Wow.
yeah. Here's a quick history lesson for you. So the skincare industry at large has always, up until the turn of the century, the last century, has been an industry exclusively reserved for the hyper wealthy. Okay. Why? Well, let's unpack that. First of all, ingredients were always hard to get and expensive, right? The olive oil, we think olive oil is so easy, but rewind the clock a couple hundred years, there's a lot of work that went into creating olive oil, right? And it was expensive. But more importantly, and this I love unpacking this. Up until a couple hundred years ago, okay, 99.9% of this planet were starving all the time. Okay, we're living out on the cities. You had cities, but most people lived in the country. Okay, and there were no shopping malls. There were no grocery stores. If you live near a town, you might have a town butcher, but only in the winter, because you weren't butchering a cow in the summer. What are you going to do with 1,500-pound carcass and no refrigeration, right? And so 99.9% of the planet in the day-to-day, week-to-week hunting, gathering, and preparing of food, okay, we're constantly in contact with animal fat. Okay. Who wasn't in contact with animal fat? The wealthy that had the money to pay the person to butcher their own stuff and hunt their own stuff and cook their own stuff, right? And so the further we as a species have gotten away from daily, weekly interactions with animal fat, either through eviscerating a carcass. Most the men that did most of the hunting, and if you've ever skinned a deer and eviscerated the you're covered in fat when it's all over and done with, right? And then they'd hand the meat off to the women, not to take this down the
Well,
whatever fourth wave feminism thing or what, but women were in the kitchen and they were cooking
Mm-hmm.
with animal fat. Full stop. Butter, lard, leaf lard. Here's one for you. It's, again, tallow's the hot buzzword today. You rewind the clock to 1910, okay? There is a 100% chance that if you walked in the general store of your town or rode the buggy 20 miles into town and there were no grocery stores, you walked into your general store and that was next to the bakery, that was next to the horseshoeing place, right? You walked in there to get your nails and your turpentine and your there is a 100% chance you walked out of there with a can of lard. Full stop. You don't see cans of tallow in 1895 or 1910. Tallow, again, I'm not knocking tallow. I'm just telling you, we are children of the lard. Okay.
mhm.
Tallow was reserved for soap making and candle making.
Yeah.
Okay. Until the turn of the century and the light bulb came along. And there's a whole history behind this and price fixing, the meat packing industry and all that. But, and I say 1910 for a specific reason, because in 1911, that's when Crisco launched.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, we see this shift into perpetually replacing more and more animal fats with these with these, industrial lubricants that, pass off as oils. And just to bring this home, the nail in the coffin of lard specifically, because I'm a lard guy. The nail in the coffin of lard was World War II. And you think, how is that possible? Well, lard was rationed in World War II for 4 years. Now, this is post Crisco launch, right? So it's like we take the lard off the shelves. Crisco, by the way, is dyed white. It's short for crystallized cottonseed oil, by the way. It's dyed white to mimic lard. Because, again, 100% chance, 0% chance it's tallow. 100% chance you're walking out of that store with lard in 1910. So they dyed it white. Comes World War II. Ladies, have you seen Fight Club?
Yeah.
It's a great movie. What's on the cover of Fight Club? Do you remember the movie poster cover?
I don't remember.
It's a bar of soap. Okay. Because in the movie, I don't know if you remember this, but I always love bringing this full circle. Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, they're talking and they start raiding the dumpsters outside of liposuction clinics to get the fat, collect the fat, because they're making soap. Okay, there's a bar of soap on the movie cover.
Okay.
But what are they really making? Do you remember the end of the movie? They're making nitroglycerin, which is an explosive. Remember, because they blow up all the credit card companies.
Right.
Okay. If you could make explosives out of cottonseed oil, we would have had no reason during World War II to ration lard, but you can't because it's not a complete fat. Lard, however, if you want to make nitroglycerin, which is explosives, so for the war effort in World War II, they rationed lard. They took it off the shelves. Okay. And then, of course, 4 years off the shelves. Don't worry, here's Crisco, and here's this handy Betty Crocker cookbook, and here's all the marketing, and here's all of this. We lost all but 3 pig breeds. So pigs used to be bred for fat or for meat. Today, the phenotype of pigs has shifted a little bit, and you either breed them for bacon or for hams. Either a long torpedo or a short, squatty trash can. You either want big old butts or big old long bellies. But we had all these lard breeds that had over time they had become very good pigs at taking excess calories and converting it into subcutaneous fat, which is where lard comes from. So you had these breeds over time that had been nurtured and encouraged to, quite frankly, take excess calories and convert them into fat, because we did everything with lard. So thank you for obliging me that little story, but it really is. It's unbelievable how far removed from our vernacular lard is. I mean, it really fascinates my mind. Another quick funny story. When I launched, I went to the Weston A. Price conference in Allen, Texas.
Okay.
In November of 2021. We didn't even have the site up yet. I just signed up. I took samples. I didn't even have anything to sell yet. Okay. Now, if you're not familiar with Weston A. Price, I'm sure you are, but your listeners, if they don't know, it's a phenomenal organization. Deep heritage about food and food quality and all these fun things. And here I am going out there and I'm thinking, man, these people they get me. They know what I'm doing. I spent 3 days in Allen, Texas. It floored me because everyone would walk up and they're like, oh, tallow. And I'm like, no, this is lard. Lard? I never thought to put lard on. What? Hold on. You mean tallow? I spent 3 days trying to explain to people what lard was. And it blew my mind. This is not a bad story about Weston A. Price. It's just indicative of how this beyond ideal fat that literally our country ran on for the better part of 150 to almost 200 years, right? And people they just don't even know it exists anymore. It's fascinating.
it's a big disconnect. I mean, I end up and have talked to my brother about it because I remember in the 80s, my grandparents, we butchered pigs. We ended up and we did the full at-home processing. We did the whole, my grandma, you know, cooked with it. And I'm like, where did we go from like the 80s to now? Where, like you said, even in, you know, the last 5 years, 6 years, when I first started carnivore, I did high fat carnivore. So I was eating a lot of fat. Leaf lard or leaf fat cooks up really well because it maintains its structure. So where you're talking about grinding it down, it's one of those that you can fry, you can get it crispy, and you can have some really good fat chunks out of it because it's not just going to all melt away when you know, put it in hot lard, essentially. So I would utilize that on my high fat side of things because it was easy to get, you know, a bite of it and a bite of, which is very ironic. I just ended up and ate pork tonight. Just
I did too.
we both had pork, not even thinking about this whole interview, but yeah, you know, just the fact of how we used to cook, even in my grandparents, right? You can
Well,
shut it completely.
you're unique. I will say you're unique. I mean, I grew up in a Crisco household. You know,
Well, my mom
most
had
people,
Crisco, but my grandparents
but
had
remember, historically, lard was the first fat to be attacked and targeted by Procter and Gamble, Big Food, Big Seed Oil, right? And then, you know, tallow held on to its this is crazy too. Tallow held on to its prominence primarily because McDonald's fried in tallow. Now, why would McDonald's fry in tallow? The easy answer is it's
Cheap.
it's tasty. It's
Was it?
tasty and it works and all this. But the real
They hit the
answer is
fat, they hit the
it
salt,
was
and they hit
cheap. No,
Yeah.
it was a okay. So again, we used to make everything out of animal fats.
Mm-hmm.
And now think like 1930s, 40s, 50s. Okay. We did not butcher beef in this country en masse until post World War, certainly World War I, but definitely World War II, because we did not have reliable refrigeration. And again, you kill a 1,600-pound carcass in July with no refrigeration. You either eat it all right then and there, or most of it goes to waste. So all of the beef processing in this country was wedged into about 3 or 4 months out of the year. Okay. And even then, I mean, fresh beef as a foodstuff was introduced to this country due to commercially available, reliable refrigeration. And at that point, by that point in time, most of the other uses of animal fat, ergo candle making, soap making, those had already been replaced by industrial seed oils. So now all of a sudden we can kill all these extra cows. We got all this extra fat. It's a waste product. What the hell are we going to do with it? It was cheap. And so why wouldn't you take this waste product from now our ability to scale meat production, beef specifically? We got to do something with it. And we can't compost it because it doesn't compost very well. So let's sell it to McDonald's to fry their French fries in.
makes sense.
No, it does.
Well, I know
I wish I could make it make sense, Becky,
Well.
but no,
Well,
it really is a fascinating history.
yeah.
It is. It's been a good history lesson. And as you've been telling the stories and talking, I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, my dad would be right in here with you right now going, this is the way we did it. You know, my dad is early 80s. Like he talks about grandma with the
Yep.
lard and, start breakfast. And I mean, they would go out and tap the trees and cook, the sap from the trees. And I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Well, and
it
Becky,
was-
let's not forget this too. The 80s were awesome. I'm a child of the 80s. I was born in 1974. Loved the 80s. The food pyramid hits in 1992. The demonization of saturated fat was already well on its way into the 80s and late 80s, early 90s. But the food pyramid, and so that the marketing campaign about the demonization of animal fat, all of this plays a role in sort of where we sit today in terms of these fats and their quality, and even that's just, are they on the tongue or on the minds of Americans? It's just tallow had its day in the sun, if you will, well after lard, and well into the 80s and 90s. It's just we forgot about lard.
But it makes sense how the government basically lied to us before in, like you said, demonizing it. And
wait, the government lies to us?
Did I say that? But whether we look back at the studies in regards of sugar and in the whole, realm of what come of, them hiding animal fat, right? It all played together. I mean, it was one thing after another as this process. I mean, you called a few of them out, as far as the food pyramid and everything else, but there's a lot to it. Fat doesn't necessarily make you fat, right? Otherwise, like you said, people of the 80s would have been, right? Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things is when we feed our body what it truly needs, or we use what our body needs, and we quit disrupting, we quit interfering, we can live a healthy life. It wasn't that, we have more conditions now than what we ever did when we were doing what, like I said, even my grandparents were doing. So I'll get off that soapbox.
Well, I mean, look at the numbers, right? We have more doctors, we have more gyms, we have more drugs, we have more food, and I'm going to put air quotes around food, because a lot of the things they pass off as food today aren't. But we have access to more calories. We have access to more doctors, more drugs, more gyms than we've ever had in the history of the human species. And yet, look at us, right? So, yeah, I'm very encouraged. I'm encouraged, and one of the reasons I'm encouraged is it's not the best reason in the world, but I regrettably, I believe our species at large has reached a tipping point with how much toxicity and how much lack of nutrition we can tolerate and still thrive as a species. And I believe that certainly the developed world, and regrettably the United States of America, is a shining example of we've pushed this thing way too far, and so whether it's the microplastics in our clothing, or the fluoride in our drinking water, or I joked with somebody today that I said that bathroom air fresheners should be illegal.
Yes.
They should be illegal, right? Because, put a box of matches in there or something, or just clean the bathroom. But I would be more happy breathing in someone else's smell than knowing what I'm breathing in with whatever the latest and greatest plug-in chemical pheromone disruptive garbage that is plaguing me. And Becky, I think you touched on this earlier. I do want to make this point. I don't know when you guys want to stop. I can
well,
rip this
saying,
stuff
we have people
night.
over for a Q&A too, so we'll jump over there here in
okay,
a little bit.
Well, let me hit this, and then we'll get into some questions. We are so over sanitized, okay?
Yeah.
And this was obviously compounded by standard deviations during the pandemic, okay? But again, take it back to 1910. There's no running hot water, okay? If you wanted to take a bath, which you were lucky to get one once a week, if you didn't have a creek or a pond to go jump in, right? But if you wanted to take a bath in hot water, okay, then you had You had to fill the tub and you had to
Yep.
heat the water. Okay. And so somehow all of us survived that, you know, washing our bodies off once a week, you know, with but again, back then, soap made with tallow and lye
Why?
and
Yep.
water, right? And so I tell people, you know, skincare, let's bring it back to skincare. What can you do to have optimal skin? Here's one thing you can do: put that shit down.
Yep.
Like eye soap, you know, I mean, we have a soap and it's awesome. And it's only got a handful of ingredients and it's real soap. Okay. If it doesn't say soap, definitely do not use it. Okay. If it says beauty bar or body wash, or like, stay as far away from that stuff as you can, because again, coming out of World War II, we developed this amazing powder to sanitize wounds in the field of battle. So I get shot or stabbed, we got this, I mean, it's like napalm for bugs. And so we developed this stuff. It was really good. We were really good at developing it. Well, after the war, it's like, well, we can make this stuff and it cleans things really well. What can we use it for? And it's one of the shining moments in the FDA's history. They said, okay, you can put it in you can make something out of it you can make a cleanser, but you cannot call it soap. Soap is short for saponification, which is the process by which we combine fat with lye. Okay, it saponifies. And so, for your listeners, if it doesn't say soap, definitely don't use it. But more importantly, I'm going to call it a technology, because that's what it is. The technology of running reliable hot water is less than 80 years old in this country. In this country, right? Show me how many people had hot water heaters in 1940. Few.
Mhm.
Okay. And so if we think about what being dirty is I've sweat, I've overproduced sebum, my glands, you know, due to, you know, it being hot or me working hard or whatever the case may be. I've got salts on my skin, and if I've got a little extra oil, it's maybe bound up to particulate matter in the air, dust and grime and all that, right? Okay. Well, how do you get excess oil off your skin? Warm water. And so take your washcloth, hop in your shower, take a warm shower, and exfoliate your skin with a washcloth. I'm telling you, if you'll do that for 2 weeks, I use soap usually about 3 or 4 times a month. I usually have to tell people this at the end of the party, not at the beginning, right? but I use soap about 3 or 4 times a month, and even then, it's typically like Pitt's Privates. And if I get my hair cut, I'll use my soap as a shampoo just to get all the loose hair out and stuff like that. But stop over stripping all of this natural oil off your skin, and just get the excess off. And oh, by the way, don't napalm your microbiome, folks. We're covered with 7 pounds of bugs living in our tummies and in our noses and on our skin. And we have more DNA that's not ours on our body than DNA that's ours. It's crazy. And so there's my pro tip for everybody: is put the cleansers down. We've co-evolved with all of these microorganisms I keep hitting this microphone. I got to get a better. I'm sorry, ladies. I got to get a better setup. I got to get one of those like things. Anyway, so I want to leave everyone with that project of just put the cleansers down for a little while and use warm water.
I'll jump on that bandwagon with you, because you'd be surprised when I'm in a coaching, like one-on-one client session, or even in the BNC community, I don't wash my hair every day. I wash it once a week, and I don't end up in shower every day. So Charles, I'm right there with you. You don't have to
Yep.
feel bad because I don't. And people are like, "What? You know, I shower 2-3 times a day if I go to the gym." I'm
And just to
sorry,
be
I
clear,
don't.
just to be clear, I'm not telling people not to take a shower. I shower every
That's
day.
very true. It's
Well, I
not
mean, listen,
soaping.
I there's
Soaping.
plenty of times where I don't shower. I love going on long trips, camping. I love not
Yeah.
showering. It's awesome. But I shower every day. I don't want people to think that I'm not encouraging them to get under the warm water. It's awesome. It relaxes you. But just leave the soap and the
Cleansing, yeah.
shampoo and the conditioners. And for hair and ladies, this is a big thing for ladies. So I always tell them, okay, if you're going over on a long weekend trip or you're going on a vacation somewhere that you don't have to necessarily worry about going to the office, then a couple days before you leave, cut the shampoo, and then don't because your hair, it's just like making a dietary change. Everything has to adjust. And most
Mhm.
people, when they try this, just because I've coached a number of people to do it, they never make it past the third or fourth day because they get a little greasy, because
Yeah.
your glands are used to hyper producing all these oils because you're stripping them off every single day. Give it some time. It's just like coming off the sugar monster. I'm doing the carnivore month this month, and I've got a bunch of folks at my office that are doing it. And, this was our first week and a half, and so I'm fielding lots of questions about, well, I feel this way, and it's like, just be patient, eat, drink lots of water. You're adjusting. We're making some changes here, and so I encourage people to try it. You can certainly shower every day. Just kick the cleansers to the curb.
You were like, "Oh, here's my soap." And I'm thinking, well, I didn't get any soap. How come I didn't get it in my package? And then it's like, oh, well, never mind. I don't need your soap because I'm just going to warm.
Well, I
you
mean,
know?
if you're going to use soap, use the goat.
There we go. But just so everyone knows, so Charles was really nice. He gave me an affiliate code, which I put in the comments. Um, so you can use just healing, healing. You can go to www.farrow.life/healing. So again, it's in the chat. And so thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that. It's a good product. I use it. I can't say good enough. And I know we need to jump over for our Q&A. So Becky, I'll let you wrap it up. So, and don't go anywhere, Charles. Just stay right where you're at.
Yeah. Hang with us. Anyone that is watching still on the YouTube, if you're in the BNC community, there was a link posted in the feed. You can jump into the Q&A. I know we've got a couple over there, so we will jump to that currently by Instagram, by YouTube, by Facebooks. Y'all are being booted out for the private Q&A. If Becky can find